Welcome to the Immerse podcast. We are your hosts, Alex O'Keefe and Dan Ramsden.
We aim to immerse you in education via our guests, bring communities together, embrace positive change and help create solid habits that yield the path for our health and longevity.
Right, here we go. Right guys, welcome to a new episode of the Immerse podcast. We are here in the beautiful studio of Eletha Studios, is that right?
That's
Holly?
it. Well pronounced, yeah.
Eletha, yeah.
Eletha.
And we're here with Holly. She is an amazing person who's just led us through our first ever Reformer Pilates class. So firstly, thank you for that, Holly. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to have you both here, and we're going to be sharing some behind the scenes of that little class, so you can check that out as well.
I'm sure we're all right with that.
I don't think people need to see that.
No, but in all seriousness, thank you for joining us, Holly. You've created something amazing here, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But you've gone on quite the journey.
Yes.
You've got a hell of a story, and this is kind of why we're here today, to talk about your journey, what you've gone through working from a corporate role to finding the courage to step into something that you're pulled by passion, and some traumatic events along the way. So I'd like us to start, Holly. Put yourself back in your corporate job, okay? And I want you to kind of explain what that was, what sort of mindset you were in at that particular time in your life. Let's go pre-fear, pre being a mum.
Yeah.
And let's start there.
Yeah, no, definitely. So my corporate career was in financial services, and I'd pretty much worked in that industry since I was about 19. So many years. I'm 38 now. So when I left, I'd nearly done 20 years in that industry, doing lots of different roles and different jobs. I spent my whole of my 20s absolutely hustling at work. You know, my career was everything to me. I was so driven and ambitious, and I progressed well. I had a really senior role at the time that I left. And I loved my job. I loved managing a big team. I like to be thriving, busy, always on it, difficult decisions to make, lots of strategy work. And I enjoyed it. I had a great team. But everything changed really when I had Thea. So I had Thea when I was 35, so I was a bit older. And I never felt the same after I went back. It was really weird. I couldn't see it coming. I couldn't imagine how my life would change. But suddenly I didn't have the amount of mental capacity that I had before to operate at the same level. And I constantly found myself comparing the person I was to the person I'd become. And I could see other people edging on me a little bit. And I used to be so competitive. I have to be the best. Our performance has to be the best. Our team's the best. And it's like I took only about 8 months out. I had 8 months off on maternity leave. So it wasn't that long, but I felt like I lost a bit of momentum then. And then coming back in, suddenly I can't apply 100% of my life to work anymore, and everything changed. So that's where I started to question, you know, what am I going to do? Because this just doesn't feel the same anymore. And it was putting me into quite a negative mind space of like this constant comparison, me to me, as if like something's changed. I can't put my finger on what. So that's how, you know, I came to start to make the decision, actually, I need to do something else. And partly having Thea in the journey, which I'm sure we'll talk about, was the pull, as you said. So there was a bit of a push and a pull situation. But yeah, I was massively successful in my career, and literally spent all of the hours of my day and life through my 20s and early 30s absolutely focused on that.
Yeah.
It's quite an unusual dynamic where people generally have the comparison with others.
Yes.
But you was having the comparison with yourself. And I'm guessing that were even a more tricky situation internally for you. I bet it were quite a battle, that, wasn't it, at the time?
And I think it's more, you can see it clearer in hindsight. At the time, I didn't feel right, but it's come to me more clear since. I'm like, that was the biggest issue. It was like, you know what it's like, you're tired, and the minute you get home, there's no break. Work becomes the break from being a parent, in my opinion. And before, I used to think, I'm exhausted at work, I need to go on holiday. And now work's the break from being a parent, which I find the harder job out of the two. So there's just no let up. So like my memory, I'd forget things. I wasn't on everything as much. And I found that really difficult to deal with, because people would have known me before being extremely sharp on everything. Nothing got past Holly, you know, in a nice way. My team loved me, but it was just that like sharpness was slightly blunted and I couldn't get it back. So it was that I was feeling like something doesn't feel the same, and I can't lay my finger on what it is.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's a different role, obviously, being a parent.
Oh my God.
Had to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of, it's just a completely different way of life.
Yeah.
And being a parent.
Yeah.
And the pace of life changes.
Yeah.
And it's just the little things in it that generally count. You know, I think the corporate world and things like that, and you know, pushing business and striving for more, and et cetera, it's a completely different speed of life.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it was, you know, it was like survival of the fittest, you know, the strongest were the best. And when you've been that, and then you're feeling I can't be that now, because to your point, I feel then guilty on theory if I'm away more or I'm working longer hours or whatever. It was really hard because I was feeling myself, my position slipping slightly, and that wasn't comfortable to me, because kind of success is one of my like core values, and when I feel like that's been compromised, I don't feel good in myself. So I just knew something had to change. I couldn't have continued. I think it would have been detrimental over the longer term. So yeah.
And let's go to the actual birth of your daughter.
Yeah.
And it's a similar story for my ex-wife, actually, and our firstborn. Can you tell us about what happened there, and then why, you know, what brought you here to where we are today?
Yeah.
And what's brought your passion out, and can you explain that story for us?
Yeah, definitely. So just rewinding back a little bit, I've always been into health and fitness, you know, all my life in different facets and whatever. I used to do a lot of high intense exercise, running, high rocks, that kind of thing. I met my partner through that. So it's like right in the heart of my, you know, what I do. It's part of my identity. A lot of my best friends are into it. It's the community that we're in. So fitness has been massive. And I trained through my whole pregnancy. You know, I was in the gym, I carried on, did everything. I did get a really severe case of COVID during my pregnancy. So at 24 weeks, I got COVID so badly that I got a blood clot on my lung as well. And I broke 2 of my ribs from coughing so severely. So in hindsight, I think that had impacted like my pelvic floor and health and stuff, just because I was coughing so much, carrying a baby. My body couldn't fight the COVID off because your immune system suppresses when you're pregnant, so that it doesn't recognise your baby as like a foreign body and try and fight it. So when you can get ill, you can get really ill. So I ended up having to have like injections every day to disperse the blood clot. I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and then throughout my pregnancy. So my whole like lung capacity and everything was quite affected towards like the 3rd trimester. But I did recover from that. But the COVID was the reason that I was induced early. So only a week early, but basically I'd become really breathless. Like I was really struggling to breathe, which does happen towards the end because there's no space, and I'm quite slim anyway. So my lung, I was like literally panting tiny breaths. So they were like, this isn't really great for you, let's induce you. So that my body wasn't ready to go into labour at the end of the day. Like they had to, over a 5-day period, go through loads of different induction processes, which is basically designed to like bring your body into labour, get you to start dilating, get your waters to break. And I think I'd have been pregnant for like weeks after. I think I'd have gone overdue if I hadn't been induced, because my body was just not responding. It was just like they had to manually break my waters. They had to literally stick a pin in them, get them to break, force me through like loads of medication to get me to start to dilate to be able to go into active labour. So I was in hospital for like 5 days going through that whole process. I didn't sleep because I was like mildly having contractions the whole time, so it was quite painful. The whole thing was just not great. It was 2021, so it wasn't the COVID year, but it was the year after, so no one was with me. I had to be on my own. There was no ability to have anyone with me during that process. I was just on my own the whole time. And then once my waters were broken, they let my partner come in to then be with me through the labour, basically. They identified quite early on that my daughter was in a weird position. Her shoulder was kind of stuck. So they did like a few methods that they do to try and manipulate a position, like pressing on your belly and trying to move her. But ultimately I ended up getting to 10 centimetres once the waters were broken, it was reasonably fast. My labour was about 10 hours, but it was like 0 to 10 quite fast. Then I was pushing her for hours and hours. Really, they say that you shouldn't push for more than an hour because it's a lot of pressure. And because I'd had an epidural, I couldn't feel how hard I was pushing because everything down from the waist is numb. So I'm like, they're telling me when to push. They're saying, you're having a contraction, I couldn't feel it anymore. Push harder. But you don't know how hard you're pushing because you can't feel anything. And obviously she wasn't coming out, and they carried this on and on and on. They kept saying, she's nearly there, like we can feel her head and stuff. And I'm like, nothing's working. And I was literally passing out in between the pushes because I was so exhausted. Bearing in mind I've been in the hospital for 5 days awake. I had nothing left, and I'm really strong, fit and healthy, but I was just like, I can't cope with this anymore. Her heart rate started to drop, and in the end, emergency, they brought forceps out to pull her out of me basically because she was stuck, her heart rate was dropping, and I was literally like, do whatever you need to do to get her out. I can't take this anymore. Like, if I have to die to get her out healthy, just do it. That's how extreme the situation was. Within the minute they got the forceps in, so they also have to cut you to make space for the forceps. So that's called an episiotomy. So they slice a bit of you to make more space. The forceps are so long, instrument like this. I remember them getting them out and I was thinking, where are they going? Yeah. Where are you putting them?
I couldn't believe it myself.
They're so huge.
I was like, what are you doing with that?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously you can't see because they've covered you here, so thank God you can't see. And then literally they pulled her out. Oh my God, I can't explain the relief of her coming out because she's been trapped in my vagina, the birth canal, for 2 hours. It's just completely trapped there. So it was just this instant oh my God, she's out of me. Do you know what I mean? So I was so relieved. She cried straight away. I was so lucky because I thought, oh my God, is she going to be all right? She's been stuck there for so long. But she cried straight away and they passed her to me. And honestly, it's that moment, I would do it all again to relive it again and again. The moment you meet your child, I was really lucky. I had that bond with her straight away. I know some people say that they don't, but no matter what I'd gone through, honestly, the minute I met her, I was just oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And she was breathing and she was healthy and everything. I then was hemorrhaging, losing loads of blood. It was pouring out of me. I could sort of vaguely see all of these rags full of blood just stacking up and up, and I'm thinking, is that coming from me? I couldn't feel anything. They were stitching me up down there, and then basically that was it. So it was quite a traumatic birth, but I must admit I didn't really realise it was that traumatic at the time because you just do what you've got to do. I don't really know what's normal, what's not. So I just was right, okay. Then my partner had to leave instantly, so he wasn't allowed to stay with me after that because again, it was COVID. I got put to the ward and just left basically there. And I was everything's in agony, the swelling, everything was just horrendous. But that was it. And then I left the hospital the next day. I couldn't really walk. The stitches that I had got infected 4 times. So it was agony. People say oh, you have a cesarean and you're immobilised. I was immobilised. I couldn't sit like this. I couldn't lay. I could only lay on the side where the stitches weren't. Couldn't pick her up. Couldn't do anything for her really for about 4 weeks till all that cleared up. So yeah, I didn't initially think afterwards, apart from that anything was not right as such, because I didn't know what was right or was what was wrong. Everything felt really heavy, everything was about to fall out of me, but I didn't know if that was normal, and no one was telling me anything different. So I just sort of got on with life.
A woman's work.
I know.
Honestly,
wow.
I were there for the birth of my daughter, and as a man, you have so much respect. You should do anyway, but extra levels of respect for seeing what women go through in childbirth. Yeah. And wow, yeah, it just sounded like you say, you didn't. That was your first experience. Yeah. So to you, this is normal. Yeah. And then obviously the kind of the scientific process. All these chemicals are released, so you don't actually feel much, do you? And then you've got the epidural. Yeah. But yeah, wow. I just can't help but think the emotion that you were feeling at that time, and God, yeah, I'm kind of lost for words a bit. Really.
It's scary. It's very scary because I had those. It's a very similar situation. Yours sounded a bit more intense. You were in hospital for so much longer, but the worry, when you're this is not right. They're stuck and the heart rate's dropping, and and then these instruments come out and you're like, what's actually going on right now?
Your protective instinct is you don't realise till those moments is already there. Like, you've carried that baby, and like I said, I would have literally said, kill me to save her. I've never felt like that before. Like, since, you don't, before you have a child, you don't know love like that. But yeah, it was a lot. And like I said, I think in a way I was like, oh, well, it's happened and that's happened. And it's only since I've shared my story more and told people that, like, that sounds horrendous, I actually just sort of like processed it as, well, it's what had to happen to have her, and didn't really realise, I don't think, for a while how traumatic it had been. But that trauma's there. You're just holding on to it, but not processing it, because I'm just like, well, it is what it is.
I think there should be some precautions, as you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
A bit of an insight into what could be,
yeah,
what might happen, and what we would do in this situation. And it's obviously not to scare people,
yeah,
but it can make you have a bit more of an informed decision as to, okay, the child's out of natural position. There may be some tricky instances with the birth. These are your options. Like, I think this conversation needs to be had a lot more for women.
Yeah, if I had my time again, without any doubt, at the point the induction just wasn't really working, I would have requested a planned cesarean, where it wasn't an emergency, it wasn't stressful. It was like, this is what we're going to do. And that was before I even knew his shoulder was stuck, but there was still an opportunity then to go down that route, and it just wasn't offered. And I mentioned to you guys before that forceps are used in 1 in 8 births in the UK, and they're banned in a lot of countries in Europe and America. So they've been around since like the Dark Ages, and they look like something from the Dark Ages. Yeah. But I think it's all part of this NHS issue that we've got with funding and money and everything. So many women in the UK are dealing with the effects of the use of forceps. In my case, obviously it was this mad rush. We couldn't even go into the operating room. They just had to bring everybody in. They literally pulled her out, and my pelvic floor was detached with the forceps from the bone. Imagine ripping a muscle off your bone. It's quite severe. And obviously I couldn't feel that happened because I had the epidural. Brilliant. I didn't have the pain in the moment, but afterwards, obviously, I'm like, this is all so painful. It's like severe injuries is the only way I can put it. But like, again, it's like, oh, well, you've had a baby. Well, I couldn't walk or move. It's like, that was the severest injuries I've ever experienced. It was really hard. And then you're trying to become a new mum, you're not sleeping. Yeah. Your baby's up every hour. You've got to look after them. Your partner goes back to work. What are you supposed to do? You just have to suck it up and get on with it, really. And it's hard. I never felt really like I suffered with like postnatal depression and stuff. I've never really suffered with depression. So I am a very much like, let's just get up and get on with it, and I sort of process things later if I need to. So I didn't feel really down about any of this. I just got on with it as best I could. But I know a lot of people that I speak to certainly really struggle with that trauma hitting them afterwards and affecting the bond they've got with the baby and stuff as well.
Have you let that... Sorry, Dan.
No, it's good. You go.
Have you let that trauma in since, or have you kind of just... Have you let it go and just dealt with it? Because... like you say, a lot of people would let that in, and it might affect them negatively. Yeah. It might, stop them doing whatever they're doing in life. Yeah. Have you let it in? How have you dealt with that?
So I talk quite openly through my social media about my whole experience and like the injuries that I'm left with from it. And external processing for me is the way I tend to process things. I like to talk about them, and people are like, oh God, how do you dare talk about that on your social media in public? It's embarrassing. And I'm like, for me, actually, it's the way I deal with it. So I do it to help other people, but I do it to help myself. I process my thoughts. If I've got like something, it's on my mind, or I feel down about it, I tend to post something, and it's almost like journaling, but in a public forum. Yeah. So I just write stuff down. Like, I'll write a really long caption. I love writing. So that sort of like helps me process my thoughts on it. So I feel like that's how I've handled the trauma, really. I feel like I've done it through that. That's just what's worked for me. I haven't had any therapy or anything, but I have in the past. I have had counselling and therapy in the past for other things. I feel I'm quite well equipped from that to manage my mindset around things. And I'm really grateful as well. I focus a lot on gratitude. I'm really grateful to have Thea and her be healthy. Yeah. And I choose to focus more on that than I do like what happened. So my eye might be on it, but I don't let myself sink into it because I don't feel like that doesn't help me. More focus like on the good things. I can still walk, I can still exercise. Yeah. There's people a lot worse than me.
So since then you've, had this prolapse, which has caused, numerous complications. Yeah. Were there a lot of support for you in terms of what to do, what not to do, how to manage it? And then what were the journey that you went on that's obviously brought us here today?
Yeah, so after I had Thea, there was nothing. There was no checkup. There was no referral to physio. There was just nothing. And I thought I'd recovered quite well. So the months went on and I started to feel more back to myself. Never like weed myself or anything. I didn't really think I had any issues with like my prolapse or anything. I didn't even really know what it was. And then it was one random day, we'd been in town and I'd carried Thea a lot that day. And she was like in a really clingy phase. And I remember thinking, something doesn't feel right down there. The only way I can describe it for women that are like listening is that it felt like a tampon was in me. I could feel it wasn't in the right position. Something was present there. And I'm like, what is that? And I actually thought, oh my God, if I like accidentally left a tampon in for my period, some girls do that. So I literally got home and I was like, Curtis, something's not right. And he's like, there's nothing there. He was even looking. He was like there with the iPhone torch. I'm like, I can feel something. He's like, nothing's there. So I started like Googling it as you do and read that's like a really classic symptom of like something's prolapse. So basically your pelvic floor is the muscle that holds up your bladder, like your rectum and your uterus. It's the like shelf here. So if it prolapses, basically it's collapsed and one or more of those organs starts to descend downwards. And that's what I was feeling. So my bladder has basically fallen out of its position because my pelvic floor wasn't strong enough to hold it up. So it's then basically coming down into like, not into your vaginal canal, but it's pushing into there. And that's what I could feel that was there. So I went to the doctors the next day because I'm like, one of these, I'm like, once I know something's not right, I just need to go and find out the facts so
and
I
how
can
far
deal with it.
on from birth are you at this
About
point?
9 months.
Oh, wow.
Something
okay.
like that. So quite a long time. And the GP was really dismissive, just like, oh yeah, you have got a prolapse. She didn't tell me what kind of prolapse and I didn't know anything about it at the time to even ask those questions. She's like, you have, so you need to stop lifting your daughter, you need to stop exercising. Like if you carry on doing those things, it's going to get worse. Because mine is like moderate grade at the moment. So the bladder's out of place, but it's not significant. If it gets to the worst stage, your bladder can literally be hanging out of your vagina. So that's the worst stage of a prolapse.
Wow.
Okay, so it's completely collapsed. So my fear then is like, oh my God, so if I go to the gym, if I do anything, is that going to happen to me? I'm like in absolute state of panic. And she's just saying, you know, you need to do your pelvic floor exercises to try and strengthen it back up so that it can support it a bit better. And that's like it. Then I left and I'm like so shocked by it. I'm like, right, okay. I've gone back to work by this point. I've got a male manager. I'm like, my whole head's spinning. I'm like, I can't stop exercising. Like, it's such a big part of like my life, my community, like I said before. Like, that's not an option. Like, what am I going to do? So I ended up self-funding, seeing a physio, going to see a private gynecologist to get a proper diagnosis, understand like what my options are, what can I do, how can I manage it, but all paid for myself because the NHS waiting lists are like 2 years long, and I was like spiralling. My mind was like, this just can't be happening. And my physio's been great. She's like, no, you can exercise and there's lots of ways that we can work on your pelvic floor strength and whatever. Anyway, that's how I got really into Pilates. So I wanted to find a type of exercise I could do that was lower impact, that was more focused on strengthening through like breath, pelvic floor, core strength, strengthening like your glutes, your inner thighs, your surrounding muscles helps to take the pressure off your pelvic floor. So Pilates is like a huge help to people who've got like this kind of condition. But there wasn't loads of like studios and places in Leeds where I could do it. So I decided to train to be an instructor so I could do it myself at home, basically. That was my main reason for doing it. And it just went on from there. So I ended up starting to do some group classes myself. And then I got the reformer machine at home, just in my own, I've got like a little home gym in the garage. And then like loads of people like, can we come and do a session with you? And I literally could have filled every hour of my day with one-to-one reformer sessions. And like my group classes were really busy. And there was a lot of parallels from like my corporate job to like teaching, like having presence, how you present yourself, how you talk. Like there's a lot of like the transferable skill set. So yeah, I was like really enjoying that. And it was obviously so different from what I was doing, but I only had so many hours in the day to do it on the side. I did all my qualifications and everything while I was working full time and had my daughter. So that was obviously a lot of work. And then it was like you said, that pull. I thought, actually, there's no reformer studios in Leeds, and there wasn't at the time. There's a massive opportunity. I can see how many people want it because they're all trying to get booked in at my house. I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. Like, I'm just going to go and open a studio and see what happens. And I kept thinking, what's the worst that's going to happen is it's going to go tits up and I'm going to go back and get another corporate job. That's the worst that's going to happen. Is that really that bad? No. I might lose some money. It might be a bit embarrassing, whatever. So that's how it came to be. I was working away a lot with work. I used to travel all over the country, so I'd be away a lot. So I wasn't with Thea. So I wanted something that would bring me back home, more present with her, doing something I felt really passionate about. It's made such a huge difference to my recovery from this condition. Not that you can really recover, but let's say improving it and maintaining where I'm at. And it's become a way I can exercise and feel strong without all of the high rock stuff that I used to do. Probably stronger than I've ever been, but in a different way. So my passion
All
is
round.
like really in my heart for this practice. It's not just like one of these, oh, well, everyone's doing it, I'm going to do it. It's literally like changed my life. So that passion comes into my studio. You know, I love what I do here. Being able to help so many people with other sorts of injuries beyond like what I've experienced. But it's so good for like rehab, mobility, being stronger, and it's just empowering. It's good. So that's how I ended up opening the studio. I just took a massive, huge risk, put everything on the line. I had a really good job. I had a great salary, great reputation at work. Like, I just gave it all up. Everyone was stunned. They were like, please don't leave, you know, begging me to stay, offering me more money. So I just need to go. I just knew it was time. So it was a huge risk and a big decision. Calling, yeah. So like a push because of that experience I'd had at work since I had Thea, like something's not right, and then a pull in a different direction. Kind of needed those two things to come together to make me take that leap.
I love that story. I just love it because it's so, a lot of people find themselves sat in that corporate office and they might feel a pull, but they never take the action.
No.
And hearing that you've gone through all these traumatic things and still had the courage, the positive mindset to take that into your next phase is amazing to see.
I just
so
picked
well
up on one thing that you said there as well, in terms of this is one of the probably a big reason why people don't go to that next phase and push themselves to do, you know, when there's that fork in the road and it's like, I've got a decision to make. And again, it's that embarrassment that you said.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, but what will they think? And you know, I've put myself out there and I'm showcasing what I'm doing. And if it doesn't work, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I think listening to that it's probably a big reason why a lot of people don't do
Oh my
things.
God, it definitely is. And I experienced judgment. Like when I was opening here, I heard all this people chattering on, oh, she's not from the industry. She doesn't know the industry. She shouldn't be opening a studio. I heard people saying it and I thought, you don't know anything about me. Like, you literally don't know anything about me. And actually, my skill set in being in corporate to running a business has been hugely beneficial. A lot of people might be an instructor and open a studio and have zero idea how to run a business. So actually, they're probably in a worse position. They might be in the industry, but does it mean they can run a business? Because it's the two parts of it. Instructing Pilates is one thing, but running a business is full on. It's a lot and it's hard work and it all falls on you. And you'll know this, especially a startup. It all starts and stops with you. The social media content, the cleaning, the advertising, you know, absolutely everything is done by you. So I'm probably busier now than I ever was in my corporate job, even though that was like a big job. But when you're doing something that is yours and you're so passionate about it, it doesn't feel like work. Nothing I ever do feels like work. And that's the really nice bit about it, is like, financial services was great. I loved the job, but I didn't feel passionate about the subject at all. It was just the thing I was doing. But now I'm like truly led by passion, and I think that makes such a big difference in like the success of business. I've seen a lot of studios opening recently where it's just people seeing a money-making opportunity, for example, and that's fine, and I'm not judgmental to other people, but I think there's a real difference when someone's passionate about what they're doing.
It will stand out eventually.
Yeah, definitely.
And just on that, I can really see that difference, the little intricacies, and I can see the passion when you're instructing.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking us through the movements that we were doing and what we should be experiencing, and try to encourage that a little bit more. That is ultimately, you can't do that without having passion.
Yeah.
And you can't wing that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it stands out a lot. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge that. It were top class, honestly. And anyone that's listening, this has been a very sort of female heavy you know, thing that people do. Pilates is that association with females.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the males as well. Is it good for the guys? Because I certainly felt the benefits from it. And what sort of pull can we get that's going to encourage guys to do this?
Yeah, so we were chatting about this briefly before we started recording, but if you look on social media, there's reformer Pilates everywhere and there's Pilates everywhere. It's having like a real moment in the spotlight. And I think it's because people are looking for less high impact depletion on the body. There's a really nice thing when you do Pilates about how your mind connects with your body and you sort of switch off from everything else, and it leaves you feeling really refreshed. And people come and experience that probably because they see everyone else doing it. Oh, I'm going to go and try it, and then they go, oh my god, actually I feel great from doing this. But if you look out there, it's all women, and our studio is primarily full of women, but there's such huge benefits to guys doing it. As I said to you, a lot of guys are runners, they do high rocks, they do the gym, they lift heavy, they might be doing Olympic lifts, you were saying, you do that kind of thing. And generally what we see is so much tightness in the hips, hamstrings, like lacking in core strength, and like weak glutes as well. And all of those things really expose you to injury when you're then doing all of your other activities in sports and everything. So like taking a mobility approach onto like reformer with the guys is hugely beneficial. I have a lot of private male clients, rugby players and guys that have got issues. They usually come once something's gone wrong, like, oh, I've got a problem here, can you help me with it? Which is fine. And then they really see the benefits, but trying to get them to step in front of those issues, starting to prehab almost and prevent injury, is the thing that I'm really passionate about, is trying to get more guys in, because I can see the difference I can make to them when I see them. But it's one of them things, it's like anything, you know. You see most mechanics are guys because you see most guys being mechanics. It's like if you can't see men doing that thing, or in that case women, you don't think it's an option for you, and it's harder to step in through the door. So I do try and obviously share a lot about guys and the benefits and stuff, but it just feels like you're pushing a bit on a bit of a closed door at the moment. Yeah. So anything, you know, that you guys can share and we can talk about today that would help kind of bring that up, it's just because I think there's so many benefits.
I left it personally quite late. I think I started to get a little bit more serious about mobility and movement at around 38.
Yeah.
It's too late. Like, I played rugby since I was 9 and I've lifted weights since I was 15. It's too late. Yeah. But you can still make improvements no matter where you are.
Yeah.
And what I noticed, just to say it from a man's perspective, is that when I flipped the switch and I started to focus more on movement and how my body was feeling, and it's also great for being present in the moment as well. You know what I mean? You're putting your phone down, you're slowing down a little bit, and it's the yin yang. You know, we do need the high intensity stuff, and I'm a massive advocate of that, but also it's the other side of it. And for that, I noticed that my performance got better. Yeah. Because I was focusing on the other bit that needed some attention. So you've got to go back to the drawing board and get bad at something and practice something again and not be great at it. Yeah. To then move forward and get better at something again. Yeah,
and I think like it's all well and good when we're in our 30s to some degree, but you'll know I'm 38 now, so as you start heading towards 40, you start to realise you're not recovering as easily, you're getting more aches and pains, you can't take your body for granted. Like the experience I've had, I used to take my health for granted so much, like every day waking up feeling great, not even realising that. Now every day I'm living with this like condition, and it's like, I don't know, I've become so much more focused on my own health and wellness, because like I said, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you just don't really care. And then actually, it's never too late to start. You can always make a huge difference. But we're only as like young as our spine is flexible. We're only as young as our joints move and we've got good balance and coordination. And this is what this gives you. So the younger you can do that, when you're then older, you're not going to be steeped over. We all spend our lives on our phones like this with rounded shoulders. So we're not moving our spine in different directions, and all of this over time. Like our generation haven't got old yet. Watch what's going to be going on when our generation are older. They're all going to be hunched like this. Yeah. So all of these things that you can do to keep your body mobile are like so important. I don't how is that not appropriate to men and women? It is. Doesn't matter what sex you are.
No, absolutely. So 100%.
I think like anecdotally from my experience, it's something that you know is really important, but for some reason it's low on the priorities list for whatever reason that might be. You know, there's a lot of lads that I've played football with and etc. And like you say, you don't take note of it until you're late. You're late. It's too late. I stopped playing football because of a groin injury, and you know, let's say I've started doing these classes with you at an early time, I think the story would be different. Yeah. So it's like How do you plan on kind of getting that message across to people then?
I think you're right. It seems like the nice to do, not the need to do.
Yeah,
The workout feels like the need to do. And we all want to look good and feel good. So that sort of feels important. But this feels like the nice thing, or even just the stretch at the end of the workout. A lot of people don't even bother with that. They don't warm up, they don't stretch, they don't do anything. We just want to, I suppose for us, is just sharing more stories. Just some of the, I've got a male rugby player that I'm working with at the moment. He's like a pro player, and the difference that we've made for him. So we've been tracking his journey. We're going to share that. And I think just sharing more real life examples, like showing people who, it's like, well, if it's good enough for him, then why am I not doing it? And I think just sharing more of those kind of stories, I'm really focused on that. We're also thinking about introducing like a mobility focus session for guys once a week. So you can just come and we'll just focus on the mobility elements. You can do anything with these machines. You can make it a really hard workout. It can be intense, fast paced, or you can just focus fully on mobility. Yeah. So I think maybe something like that might feel more appealing to them, because they know there's going to be other guys in the room, and they know that everyone's coming for the same kind of reason. And just I'll just keep talking about it. I won't let it go. Not because I think, there's a business opportunity. We're not tapping into 50% of the market, which is also true. But it's more because, again, from a passionate point of view, I can truly see like the benefits.
It's useful.
Yeah, it's useful.
If you're helping, you don't mind screaming from the rooftops, do you?
More guys are like pushing themselves as well, doing ultra marathons, going to do Ironmans. It's like, how can I get even fitter and harder and do the hardest stuff? And every minute that they're doing that harder thing, they're putting the body under potential of an injury and stuff. So like, there's never been a better time for me, I think, to introduce more men into doing this kind of thing, just to keep themselves safe whilst they're doing all that really exciting, like high intense stuff.
Absolutely. And it's that yin yang, isn't it? We need the opposing thing.
Yeah.
To have longevity.
Yeah.
It's all right saying, look at what I did when I was 35 and I did X, Y, and Z, and now I'm sat in my chair and I'm absolutely beat up.
Yeah.
And I've not got no range, and I struggle to pick my grandkids up or whatever it is later down the line. It's like, no, we need to think about this long term. It's like, what can you keep doing?
I think that's a message in wellness generally that's getting out more though, isn't it? I've seen loads of stuff on Instagram that says like your heart failure started at 30, or your dementia started at whatever. Do you know, it's more like saying what you do now is determining your future. If you take the right steps now, you're going to be a lot happier with yourself that you did. But we don't really live like that. You don't live thinking about when you're older. You sort of think you're going to live forever, and it is those like steps, like all the stuff you guys talk about is like all about this wellness. It's about trying to be more proactive. Let's make lifestyle changes instead of taking medication. What can we do to naturally improve the situation? I have potential for surgery options for my prolapse, but personally for me, if I can avoid surgery and manage it naturally through like lifestyle change, then that's preferable for me putting my body through an operation that could create more complications. But how many people rush for them weight loss injections? They rush and go and grab the next set of tablets, or I've got a really don't get me started on that. But this is what's going on, and it's like, I've got pain, I'm going to take codeine every day, and it's like, so I'm all really passionate about wellness as a whole piece. I think what you guys are doing is good, and we were speaking about like the saunas and the ice bath and doing all that. I really want to add that into my routine, because I really believe in that as like another facet that I can add into my recovery and stuff.
It's lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's basically what it is. Like Pilates daily if you can, sauna daily, eat well, sleep well, all of these core principles. We don't need to complicate things really, do we?
No, and then like you're just mental health as well, like you're not eating crap, so you're not getting the sugar rushes and the sugar drops, and you're not addicted to caffeine, all these things, like you just feel great. So it's really nice. I feel like a different person now to when I was in that corporate career, getting up early every day, drinking caffeine on the constant grind. And now my life's much more balanced. I feel really well in myself from that.
Nice. I want to speak a little bit about something that I saw that you posted recently, which I think is really useful for other people. There's certain exercises that are off your list. Can you explain what those exercises are and why?
So I get asked this all the time. So I share my story about my prolapse and everything on my Instagram page, and because there's such a lack of support out there from like the NHS especially, a lot of people would take that message the GP gave me, don't exercise, walk out and never do anything again. And that makes me really sad, because I've managed to completely like still exercise and do most things that I used to do. But it's so sad for me that a lot of them people are like going, oh, I haven't done anything since I got told I had a prolapse 3 years ago. And like, for your mental health, how is that good? It's not.
Is that how black and white it was?
Yeah.
You just said do not exercise.
I've even got the letter that like they wrote for me for the referral to the gynaecologist, and it says on there in black and white, we've told her to stop lifting any weights, we've told her to stop running, and we've told her to try and limit how much she's lifting a toddler up. Like, how's this supposed to say, oh, Thea, sorry, I can't pick you up? Even now, like, she wants me to carry her, and I'm like, darling, I can't carry you, just walk, she's 3. But like, I say, oh, I've got a bad back, I can't tell her. So what are you supposed to say to them to stop picking them up? It's really hard. But anyway, my physio's taught me a lot about how to breathe better during exercise and just generally day to day to kind of manage the pressure that you can push down through like lifting anything up, whether it's like a dumbbell or, you know, barbell, or her or whatever. So when I put the post out that said these are the things that I avoid, it's things where I can't control that pressure through my breath. So things like running where you become really out of breath. No longer can I like stop myself from like breathing really fast and then pressure just pushes downwards. Or things like certain like abdominal exercises that are quite advanced where you lose control of your ability to breathe. You end up holding your breath because you can't, and then pressure gets pushed down. And for me, anytime pressure's being pushed down, I'm putting myself at risk of that injury worsening because I'm pushing like all the pressure downwards. So you like breathing is such a huge factor. I'm really passionate about breath work, and it's just basically, you know, as you're preparing to lift anything, taking a huge big inhale in and then exhaling as you do the lift helps your pelvic floor to lift up and avoid that pressure going downwards. So anything where I can't control the pressure, I just can't do it. So running, jumping, like I said, some more advanced like leg exercises. There's just certain things, but it's not black and white. Everyone
Leg
could be
press.
slightly different, leg press, that kind of thing.
It bears down a lot, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does bear down a lot. And you see like guys lifting in the gym and they're all holding the breath and everything, and that's great. But for women especially, that's really detrimental. Like, it's not good. And I mentioned this to you before, but my situation's obviously more severe, but 50% of women who've had children have some form of pelvic floor dysfunction. It's usually like leaking wee a little bit when they might jump on a trampoline, or even like running or anything. Any little bit of leakage of wee or anything like that is a sign your pelvic floor isn't strong. It's an invisible muscle to you that you don't really focus on. So if you're not doing anything to strengthen it and strengthen like the muscles that surround it, you are putting a lot of pressure on it, and it is just like a shelf of muscle there that can become quite weak. So even women who haven't had children, when they get older or they haven't had a traumatic birth, it can get weaker through menopause. And usually prolapse is known to be like an old woman's kind of disease because it happens a lot to old women just because they age, the muscle becomes weak and whatever. So my thing for exercise is that you can do everything. There's nothing you can or can't do as long as you feel you can manage that pressure through your breath. And if you can't, just don't do that, but find an alternative. So like, I can't run on the treadmill, but I can walk on an incline. It's probably the same outcome. Like if I looked at the calories burn, if I've got a pretty good incline on and I'm walking quite brisk, I get quite out of breath from doing that. Yes, I'm not jogging, but that bang, 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 bang of the feet going down, you can just imagine, I can feel it vibrating on my pelvic floor. It's not worth it. So instead I walk, it's slower, it's more relaxed. So there's always an alternative. You can always do something. And that's, I always welcome people to message me if they're not sure, and I'll try and help and explain to them.
Yeah. No, I've had quite a few females over the years escaping the classroom when there's certain jumping activities, and it's like, oh, you can tell where the mums are in the room, and it's like, yeah, okay, you go for your wee.
And then it's like the laugh, oh, I've had a baby, and it's like, oh, but it's actually not normal. Like, you can still overcome that. Right. You can still strengthen your pelvic floor. You just shouldn't be weeing yourself. But it's always like the narrative is like, you've had a baby, you should expect that. It's not true. So it's always, like you said before about it's never been too late. It's never too late to strengthen up your pelvic floor. It's never too late if you've got a big gap down the middle of your abdominals called diastasis recti to re-strengthen your core back up as a woman that's had a child. It's just getting the support and help to do it. And that's why I try and share as much free resource as I can. I don't get anything from it, apart from obviously I like to share my story. But I mean, if I can help other people and create resources that they can use, then that's good for me. I like to do that because I think, where else are they going to get it from?
Yeah,
So.
that's it.
I just want to take it in a slightly different direction, Holly. One thing that stands out for me, like you say, you're very competitive, very driven, all these positive traits. Where did that come from? Because obviously you've led that into a successful career, corporate-wise, and now it's transferred into your entrepreneurial sort of journey now. Where's that come from?
I've wondered this myself. I can't pinpoint anything specifically, but I grew up one of four girls, so I've got 3 sisters, and I think there's a nature of like growing up in that kind of like environment where you all want to be the best one. Not we were pushed like that, we weren't, but it was just, I think it was just growing up like that. And I don't know, I can remember being at school and feeling like that competitiveness coming through. It's like, I know like success is one of my values, because when I feel like it's compromised, I'm not happy, I'm not myself. It's like I'm out of line. And it's I guess for me, like, I just want to be the best version of myself that I can be. And it is sometimes that is detrimental to you. It's a strength and it's a weakness, because my bar is so high, it's hard to meet it all the time. So you feel like, I could be doing a little bit better with that. So for me, I think I see this a lot with ambitious and driven people. We're always trying to strive to the next thing, and it's always a false summit because you never get to it. And then the goal keeps moving forward and forward in front of you. And it's great because you get ahead of a lot of people. But the downside is you get burnt out and you're never meeting your own expectations, and you get frustrated and you think, I could have done that better. Why didn't I do that better? You question yourself. And I do that all the time, you know. I think this whole pull between being a mum and a business owner is so hard, because when I'm working really hard on this, I feel great. The business, feel guilty on her. When I'm with her and I'm neglecting the business, I feel guilty. So I'm in a constant state of guilt feeling about one thing or the other. And that's because I want to be the best mum I can be to her, and I want to be the best business owner. So I'm always feeling, you're always falling short a little bit somewhere. But I don't think it's so much so that it makes me feel bad about myself. And I can almost see it. I'm quite self-aware that I do it. And I'm like, just stop that now. You know, I can see myself beating myself up a little bit. My partner's great. He's like, but you're doing amazing. He's like a cheerleader. He's always there to like pull me up and stuff. If there's, because running a business is really hard. You know, there's up points and down points, and it can be really challenging. So I think having a support network around you is so important. I'm really close with one of my sisters. We speak every day. My dad's really supportive. My partner is. I think having that around you makes such a huge difference to boost you up when you need it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the common sort of, and I think me and you both kind of struggle with the balance of it all. You know, we're running multiple businesses, and then it's like having the ability to be present in the moment when you come home for your children, and it's a difficult dance.
Yeah, I think becoming a parent is the hugest game changer that you can never anticipate, because you just time feels really torn and your priorities always feel torn. But my probably, like, as we're coming towards the end, I know anyway, but like his closing bit is just, I've got this, like, one of my best friends from school died in a car accident when we were 21. It was just completely like in the moment. She died instantly. And she had so many plans for life that she never got to do. And I think that I've always carried that with me as like, do you know, you live once, what's the worst that can happen? I don't want to look back and regret things I didn't do. I don't want to get told I've got cancer and I've got 6 months and think, why the hell have I not done all of these things? And I think those experiences that you can have really hold you to account on yourself, to think, actually, don't just settle. Could you feel happier? Could you be doing something different? And I think for me, I've had a couple of really sad experiences like that have made me think, do you know what's the worst that's going to happen? Don't care what other people think. We live once, we've got such a short time, and we're here to make the most of it. And that's where I get, I think, a lot of my mental strength from.
Wow.
So
That's a really lovely perspective, I suppose.
I'll go through the hell to get to the heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think that's a beautiful message to leave it on. You know, I'd say, you know, we always want to end on a message, and it's, you know, something that will be thought-provoking for somebody else, and hopefully change their perspective on what they're doing, and things that they could shift and change and improve. So I just want to say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for taking us through that lovely brutal session. No, and I can say as well that I felt a burn like I've not felt a burn in quite some time, and I focus a lot on time under tension training, and the burn that I was getting from the reformer, which I've never used before, by the way, were really you know, a really positive experience. So it's not just for girls.
No, Definitely not. And on the subject of everything we've talked about, I'm always so happy to respond to DMs. I always respond to my DMs, you know, happy to help with any advice on anything. You want to open a business, you think about it. I love chatting to my community of people that follow me on Instagram and stuff. So it's nice to be able to chat to you guys, share this story. Hopefully it'll inspire a few other people in different aspects. But yeah, always happy to speak to people and stuff.
Much.
But no, it was so nice to have you both in, and we've just chatted about getting a bit more of a group session in as well. So we'll get you back.
100%. Yeah.
Fab.
And
Thank you.
just before we go, me and Dan both said that we're going to start reaching out to more inspiring women.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're definitely one of those. So thank you for sharing your story, and keep building amazing things.
Thank you so much.
And being an amazing mum as well.
And be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.